Everybody's talking about me. I can't hear a word they're saying. Only the echoes of my mind. Oh, Greg's singing along with me. He knows the lyrics.
Oh, yeah.
People stop and stare and sing it with me. Greg, let's do a duet. Come on. Bring it in.
I don't know. I don't know him that well.
You don't
I mean, I know him, but I don't know them.
Well, it's a movie reference, but all right. Yes, we've emerged. We've popped back up to the surface once again. It's your favorite three nerds that you can ever hear on podcasting. TSG, in your face, live. We are here. This is happening. I am Josh the Birdman, the de facto. I don't even know what the de facto is. Is it Poobah territory? Like kind of like the Flintstones? Should we all be wearing those? Should we all be wearing those hats with the
royal
which
order of water buffaloes?
The Royal Water Buffaloes. That's it. God damn, the Royal Water Buffaloes.
All right, that's not what de facto means, so we're clear.
No. But I just was trying to, figure.
Are you saying you're the de facto leader?
I don't know. I was trying to think about the whole thing.
Because the next thing you said was Poobah, and normally you don't just have Poobah. It's the Grand Poobah.
Oh, Poobah. That's what it was. He was the Poobah. The Poobah. That's right.
Grand Poobah. There's no Poobah. It's Grand
There's no Poobah. All right. I was more thinking de facto kazoo. How's that? Hello.
I feel like Michael Keaton and other guys where Will Ferrell just keeps coming up and like call him Captain something. It's like, no, it's just Captain.
It's just Cap.
Just Cap.
Just Captain.
My favorite shit was like the Flintstones had when they wanted to get rid of get away from their wives, they would go to the Bedrock Fire Department and volunteer. But
damn,
everything's made of stone.
Bedrock.
There's no fires.
There's no fire, right?
There's no fire.
That was some vintage.
They just do it to get away from their wives. So it's like you had the water buffaloes, and you had the Bedrock Fire Department.
All right. Well, they definitely had their game all pretty well mapped out there. They definitely there. Well, we're here in South Bedrock, and our own little grotto, if you will, a woo grotto. It was as Hugh himself used to say. But we are TSG. We are the podcast. I'm gonna go right out here and say as the podcast to try and keep us in the here and the now. That if you're listening to a guy on TikTok telling you that you don't have to accept her rejection, probably not a great piece of advice. I'm just saying. Probably not what you need to go with right now. I'm going to go out on that big limb there.
I just watched that.
It's amazing. What's amazing, it's kind of like that weird, actually, RaShaun, since before the show, you were talking about Spaceballs and like they right here, right now, like, and the watching in the video take, we're like, no, this is we can go 5 minutes. It's almost like watching that because he went so viral and then all the reactions went viral, right? So I became aware of it through the reactions, which is sort of like watching it on, this is the movie. This is where we are right now. And in 5 minutes, we'll be here. So it's been fascinating to watch the reactions to this particular gentleman's advice. My favorite being that one woman zoomed in on his right index finger and saw a really long nail and said, this guy does not have 6 women with a nail like that. I'm like, God damn. Okay.
He might have 6 dealers.
It's a possibility. Absolutely. And you can do with that information what you want.
Which nail?
It was the right index finger. I'm being very specific here.
He has 6 dealers.
It was the right index finger. Okay, in the 80s, it was the pinky. And by the way, I can confirm that Carrie Fisher's pinky nail was that long in Return of the Jedi. But
let the woman rest.
Still, oh, God bless her. I mean, come on, man. She lived, that was the 80s, man. She lived that shit. She lived that shit like in ways I couldn't even imagine. But nevertheless, I was impressed as hell again with the reactions and the absolute dragging this guy took that they were zooming in on his right index finger and saying, "There's no way any woman's gonna let him around her with an index fingernail like that. That's not gonna happen." And it was like watching these people break down the Zapruder film, right? Like that.
Back and to the left.
Most
Back and to the
people were
left.
back into the left, back into the left. Most people are, of course, focused on the content and the words of what this, inspired gentleman is saying. But yeah, that's our official advice from TSG that confidence may be one thing, but don't have to accept her rejection. A little twin flamesy if you want to go in that, if you want to watch that particular Netflix documentary. And a little, kind of anyone who's encouraging you to violate a restraining order, maybe not a good source of information. Call me crazy.
I gotta say, of all our traditional listening fans, thank you, the 12 of you. I love you.
Yeah, we love you.
I would say at least
awesome.
one of them was expecting that kind of intro to subject.
We try our best. Our best.
That's why people come to TSG. It's not the pop culture reference for movies, music, and books, comics, all that good stuff. No, it's let's lean in on this coked out incel who's probably getting 6 women, but in between his dealers. He's probably like a sub dealer. Like, hey, look what I got.
I don't know, man.
Some party sugar.
The Aussie who commented on him said it sounded like you can suggest.
Was it the Aussie? You saw the Aussie one too, right?
I saw the Aussie one. I've seen a bunch. That's
what I saw. Yeah.
The Aussie, I think, was has also, like, he's gone the most viral in that. But saying that you could suggest the best wine that goes with pepper spray, okay, mwah, chef's kiss. That is,
that and being like you're about 2 steps away or 2 octaves away from being Andrew Tate, I think is what he said.
Okay,
kind of got me too.
I got to give the Aussie.
Which, by the way, who saw Andrew Tate trying to take a spin away from his own legacy in 2024? I'm not saying a full spin. No, he's still a piece of shit. But it's funny. We're talking about viral reactions. He's actually come in on some of these things as like sort of, I know it's weird. I gotta check my bingo endorsement card. For this man. This is an endorsement. This is a forgiveness. This is nothing. I'm just pointing out, like, I didn't see that coming.
No, again, it's one of those fuck me, that was not on my bingo card moments of when Andrew Tate's like, hey, dude, tone it down, take it down a notch. Okay?
It's a problem.
Andrew fucking Tate is like, that's a bit far. That's just, I think that's a bit disrespectful. But we are the steam gentlemen.
It's like watching Valkyrie. It's like the one. It's like the one Nazi. Like, whoa. I was cool with this for 3 years, but
right.
Come on now.
But now,
come on now. Come on. That's just a bit too much. Okay?
Good Nazis.
A bridge too far.
A bridge too far. Well, you've heard some fantastic commentary already from my fellow Steve gentlemen, but let me introduce you around the table to our panel that does deal with these things, because we are pop culture, we are social commentary. So in fact, that was that social commentary right there for you. Let me introduce my fabulous co-host, the one, the only 3 of clubs himself, RaShaun Smith. How the hell are you, man? It's beautiful to see your beautiful baby face there. Love it. Just want to squeeze those cheeks. What's going on?
What do you do? How do you do? Happy to be with all of you, and I love you all both, and good to see you.
I'm feeling that love.
Indeed.
It is fantastic. And then you just heard that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Heads up, I'm not going to be talking a whole lot because I have no content for these gentlemen for this episode. However, I'm going to take as much airtime as I can when I can, and I would like to point out I made a giant fuck up when I talked about the Mount Rushmore of Black pop culture or sci-fi icons, mainly because it just can't be 4, but one person who has to be on it, and frankly, I've been waiting for us to be back together so I can take this time to say it, because I apologize. I'm sorry. I don't even know how I'm going to recover from this, but the fact that I left off Mr. Keith David is it's really hard. It's really hard for me. I mean, I've been dealing with that. It's
that's a big one.
There's imposter syndrome, and then there's what I've been dealing with, just a straight up clown. So I apologize to anyone who's listening or will listen in the future, and be like, why am I gonna listen to this anymore with this asshole Three of Clubs talking about some Mount Rushmore without Keith David? I mean, the man's still making fucking great content. And this asshole Three of Clubs is just leaving them off like, I mean, I put guys on there for one role. When you think
Welcome to hell, motherfucker.
I mean, so I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All right.
I
Well,
love you.
I will play the part of Emilio Estevez in this particular. I'll be playing the part of Emilio Estevez in this scene, and I know what you're thinking. We got another crazy white boy with a gun. All right.
I thought you were gonna give me a golf clap.
Oh, golf clap. Absolutely. I gotta say, we'll have to do an entire episode. I think we could seriously, and I'm not joking.
Men at Work?
Do an entire episode on Men at Work.
That is one of the most unappreciated movies of the early 90s.
1,010%. I didn't even realize what a work of genius it was at the time. And then I saw it on some late night Showtime thing. And it's like, God damn, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen. But allow me also to introduce the one, the only, the fabulous, sultry bass tones over there of the one, the only Mr. Greg DeSense, the Star Child. Bring it on home for us.
Good evening, everyone. I hope it's the evening wherever you are. And thank you for listening. As always, we're going to do our best to channel everything from Bob Newhart to Bob Dabalina.
Bob Dabalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina. Mr. Bobalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina.
Bob Newhart to Bob Dabalina.
So we are 1,000%.
That was Bob Newhart's favorite song.
It probably was.
Look it up, kids. Good luck.
We're 1,000% sympathetic over here. But we're recording this on a Friday night, which is akin to a Saturday night, which was really growing up for all of the gentlemen here themselves. Our favorite night of the week. Why? Because that was the night for Saturday night television. So, children, all of you gather around, listen on this wonderful podcasting, on this wonderful format, and try and imagine a time when you could not magically reach out to your own remote and just simply call in any entertainment you could possibly imagine, which is what you have right now. So much so that if you're like me, maybe it's because of the age, maybe it's because of the gray in the beard, it's really hard to choose. Like you get overwhelmed. I feel a little overwhelmed with choices because I and the other two gentlemen sharing this wonderful microphone with me were raised in a time where there were 3 channels on a main channel and 2 or 3 others on a sub channel known as UHF. We had bunny ears, and they were called that because they were 2 large antennas that could get the stronger signals from VHF, very high frequency. And then you had a weird little circular, little weird ass antenna that got in the UHF, the ultra high frequency, for those of you keeping score and those of you following along.
Or a coat hanger or a tinfoil.
Yeah, tinfoil as well, often to try and actually help with that signal and bring it in. That this was your only options, and God damn it, you loved it. You didn't have.
Let's not go too far.
There was no recording it. You had to get there. You had to be there yourself at that time. But we want to talk about the Saturday Night TV party, having your friend over. You'd have your pork rinds, you'd have your Fritos, you'd have your Doritos if you were into that. And matter of fact, Doritos back then, one flavor, nacho motherfucking cheese. That's all you got. You didn't get any of this Cool Ranch shit. Oh, no.
Whoa. I'm sorry. I know I keep cutting in. You attacked Cool Ranch of all the freaking flavors?
No, I'm not attacking. I'm just saying we didn't grow up with Cool Ranch, bitch.
No, we did. Cool Ranch has been around for a very long time. You have like 20 other flavors you could have aimed at that have just showed up.
Cool Ranch didn't. All right. When it comes time, when I've surrendered the mic, I'm gonna go check the Wikipedia and I'm gonna see when Cool Ranch came out. Because my bet, here's what I'm putting my chip down on: 1988. Okay, you're almost out of the 80s by then, but I think that's when Cool Ranch came around.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were talking about our youth. in total, not just 80s.
All right. Well, you're the baby. You're the baby. I'll accept that. And we have indoctrinated you in and anointed you with the oils of Gen X. So it's too bad you can't get out now. But
No one wants to
nevertheless,
1980. No one
yeah,
wants.
you were nevertheless raised as Gen X because I know that 1,000% that you were left at home to fend for yourself with these 3 channels, 6 if you count the UHF, and that was it. So we wanted to talk about what we did on Saturday night. So I'm going to step up to the mic. I'm going to take this away right away. Just going to dive right in. We're just going to jump right in here. It's a podcast after all, and it's not a true crime podcast, not always. But what you holding up there? What's it say? What's it say, RaShaun?
1986.
1986. God damn it!
You got Nintendo and Cool Ranch Doritos the same year, baby.
Is that the man over here? The man over here is the one who can remember what he did with his wife on a second date. He cannot remember what day his kid gets
this
to
is a family
whatever
program.
Particular. He cannot remember whatever particular activity his own child has on a Tuesday versus a Thursday without checking the calendar. But I know I was dead on when Cool Ranch came on the scene. So thank you very much. All right. I'm feeling myself right there. But Saturday nights, they used to be, especially when you were 10, 11, 12, you weren't going out with your friends. You weren't doing anything. You sat around that wonderful glow of that TV. Now, it was there, and I have to give just a couple honorable mentions because that's what the Birdman does. He's always out there giving those honorable mentions. I gotta give a tip of the cap to fellow member of the tribe, Aaron Spelling, who really invented Saturday Night TV. There we go. A top of the morning to you as I lift my kippa to you. There you go, son. That the man who really pioneered Saturday night television in and of itself, Mr. Aaron Spelling, with none less than the Love Boat, which is just, God, what a concept, right? Really just a show about who's going to have sex with who on the high seas. And every week it's a different cast, except for Charo, who, how many times did she have a cameo on there? Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. I mean, she must have been on there at least 6 times, but she never got laid, but that's okay.
Can't nobody stand up to that. Yeah.
Yeah, we never did. But you had every possible guest star, whoever the flavor of the week with. If the Love Boat was happening today, Alpha Bro, who was giving dating advice saying you don't have to accept her rejection, would probably have gotten a weekly spot at this point, just to.
She was on 8 times.
8 times. Yeah. 8 times Charo was on. But all right. Then followed up by the same man himself and the wondrous dive into the fantasy itself, Fantasy Island. Kids, anyone who's listening to this, go, and I'm sure they're out there on YouTube. Maybe they're out there on Fubo or one of the other streaming services. You can get them with Tubi or whatever, with commercials still interspersed. But man, you didn't know wonder, you didn't know excitement until you saw Fantasy Island every week. Tattoo coming up the stairs the same way, opening that door, ringing that bell, pointing up the plane with the same level of enthusiasm every single time, right? And Mr. Rourke ran a tight fucking ship, okay? What was the first thing he said when he came out there? Greg, you know it. What did he say?
Oh, I don't know it.
Oh my God. Smiles, everybody, smiles. Right?
Right. I probably remember Tattoo better, but yeah.
Yeah, fairly, because he was always the one giving the exposition and giving the understanding of what was going on. Who's that bus? Who's that bus? Oh, well, Tattoo. They are here seeking to find the lost treasure of Atlantis. Whatever the plot was that week. But just what a fabulous concept. And, you also knew that guaranteed whatever was going on this island. Keep in mind, Mr. Rourke fought the devil not once, but twice, and won twice, played by none other then Roddy McDowell, not Malcolm McDowell, Roddy McDowell, no relation. The Planet of the Apes himself, playing the devil himself, scared the shit out of me the first time because just I don't know, he was spooky. Whatever. It's Roddy McDowell. He can play the devil. He did all right. But yes, have to give that that tip of the cap, those honorable mentions to those cornerstones that really set Saturday Night TV apart, that made it at the time an event. And keep in mind, yeah, I mean, we were allowed to do a lot in Generation X. We did raise ourselves, but we weren't going out drinking by 12. That wasn't quite happening at that point, at least in my household.
Not
maybe
quite.
others. Not quite. 15. By 15, yeah, like stuff was starting to happen. But okay, 10, 11, 12, you were still at home watching the TV. So there was there together. But I have to set apart what really made Saturday Night TV for me. And that was an amazing show in the middle of the 80s that featured what else would any young, red-blooded American male want to see? A fucking Camaro that talks. Okay? It was a bitchin' Camaro, and it talked. And it talked with the voice of William Daniels, who was also playing a doctor on St. Elsewhere at the same time, so you knew who it was. The only thing that changed occasionally was the interface that it talked with. One time it was just a blinking light, and then later on it became, in the second season, it became a series of vertical lines that went up and down, just sort of like the lines on your stereo. Hi-fi, high fidelity. Look it up, kids. Yes, I'm talking about Knight Rider. God damn, could there be a better show for just a prepubescent adolescent male with a cool ass car with the lights on the front that goes back, whoo, 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 whoo. And what was kind of amazing was they in a very strange way tried to weave an underlying plot through it. Now, let me set this up for you. That Knight Industries, right? And the idea of a overlord of, I'm forgetting the name of the head overlord of it, but takes a wayward cop off the street by the name of Michael Long, who is shot, mind you, in the line of duty and presumed dead, but he's not actually dead. They save his life and they give him plastic surgery to make him look exactly like his own son. Really? Okay. This is long before QAnon, people. The guy, like the rich 1%er, gave the guy plastic surgery to look exactly like his own son so he could fight crime and go on out in the world with the help of KITT, the car known as Knight Industries 2000, where they could go and roam the countryside and help the wayfarer and whoever needs them. My personal favorite, by the way, was when he just pulls up in Little Rock, Arkansas and takes on a biker gang. God damn. Right? That was, I think, the first episode I remember seeing is that, yeah, all right, he just pulls into Little Rock or somewhere outside there and takes on an entire biker gang who the local authorities are too afraid to take on until he shows up with the car. This being the new Michael Long, now aka Michael Knight, takes him out with the car and turbo boost, which was the exact solution to everything. By the way, every problem could be solved by turbo boost. That or occasionally the ejector seat, which interestingly enough, they would use the ejector seat to take him up and actually put him up on the roof and things like that. But we're not even done. There's an anti-KITT known as Car, run by the same actor who, if you go back in, I will check again. I will go back to the IMDb and interrupt Greg during his sermon. This is the same actor who does the voices, a lot of the voices in Frosty the Snowman, if you remember that animated classic, as well as Disney's The Haunted Mansion. He is the ghost host, right? That is the voice of Car. No bullshit.
Oh, I did not need to know that.
And
Did not know that.
Later on, they bring back the son of the head of the head of Knight Industries, and he is driving a big semi truck with the name of Goliath. Okay, and to top it all off, to keep with the earlier traditions of television, the evil version, the actual son, who is fighting Michael, but just looks exactly like him, has an evil little mustache and goatee, just like they did in Star Trek. Son of a bitch! They went there. They stuck with those traditions. They knew it. They knew it worked. So I have to just say, what is your favorite Saturday night TV show, and why is it Knight Rider? That's all I got to say, because really, nothing better, guys.
I forgot
Nothing
about
better.
Yeah, I forgot about the villains. I forgot he had nemesis.
Nemesis.
Yeah, I was surprised. Yeah, especially Goliath was the 18-wheeler, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, man. If you got to go against that, one of the better subplots, Kit was bulletproof because of apparently some kind of scratch resistant paint that they put on the paint job. And there was an episode where they drove by another street sweeper that sprayed him down. That was a whole movie. That was a whole movie that also featured Tina Turner's "We Don't Need Another Hero," which was already featured in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. And they sprayed this thing on that apparently again got the scratch resistant paint off of Kit, and he was all smashed up, and then they had to rebuild him. And for a while, Michael was holding him around it's some kind of like portable stereo unit, kind of, a la boombox. In 1980s, they had to sort of take the CPU out of there, and he later got pursuit mode, which like had all kinds of extra wings that came out of that. Like he hit that motherfucker, and like that was like beyond the turbo boost. Like we're going in pursuit mode, but son of a bitch, man. Like
You gotta love writers from back then, because here we're supposed to believe, amongst all the things we've already suspended, that a bulletproof car that can stop bullets and other high projectiles somehow has one Achilles heel, and that's being painted over.
That was it, right? The right chemical
That was it.
composition.
I
It was
mean,
all
that
chemicals,
was
man.
it.
God damn, if you've ever looked at something and said that does not fit, and then you just push it in anyway, that is the writing example. That is just like, yeah, someone in the room had to be like, wait, wouldn't the bullet still be stopped by the material of it? No, man, we're going with
Nope.
no,
that's
no,
good
no.
at all. No,
It's
no,
a chemical compound, right? It was
I mean,
the 80s.
I guess once you're in a couple of eight balls in, who's really keeping count.
Exactly. And
Hell,
don't forget to warn our listeners, there is a remake that came out some years ago. Don't do it.
Don't do it. No.
Don't do
It wasn't
no.
bad. It wasn't bad. All right, look, I got nothing.
I mean, that
really
sentence
don't.
alone.
So here you go.
There you go. All right, bring it, RaShaun.
Being the baby of the group. What killed the second iteration of it was, frankly, it could not actually ever live up to the lore of the first Knight Rider, and they kept trying in a lot of different ways. They kept trying to either be like, we're new and improved, we're better, we're not your dad's Knight Rider, and that's weird because we're all like, yeah, our dad didn't watch it, we watched it,
right? We watched it, right? Yeah,
we're 10 to 30-year-olds at that moment. Or because they kept trying to outdo and try to be like, we're the new age Knight Rider, it just kept moving into all their plot points, kind of moved into, it made it kind of boring. It all just kind of kept going into like, we're so different. It's like, yeah, we got it. First of all, there's no Hasselhoff, so we already knew what we're into. And like, they made the car gray or silver, and they had all these different things. And it's like, look, we're fine with turbo boost solving most of the problems.
Turbo boost.
Exactly. So they kind of outwrote themselves from the lore that they're trying to catch. It wasn't even a bad TV show, but one season.
It was what it was. You got exactly it. You had the cool car. It was a Camaro. By the way, growing up here in Framingham, Massachusetts, in your hometown there, RaShaun, We'll call it that for now. But
Wait,
was
it's
a
not
yeah, you've lived a lot of places. You've lived on every coast. I
true.
know that much. So
True, but Framingham the longest.
Framingham the longest. There was a guy who rigged his Camaro up to look like Kit. He had the lights
Oh,
up
a
front.
lot of people did that. Yeah.
He even had the specialty. By the way, I didn't even mention the
Was
specialty
that near
steering wheel.
Waverly Road?
That's 1,000% where it was. That's where my friend Josh White
He
used to
also
live.
he
Yeah.
also had an electric blue. I forgot. I think it was a Stingray. He had the giant freaking what's the thing on the back?
Spoiler?
Yeah,
Okay. There you go. But
yeah.
I
I know the
always
house you're talking about. I walked past him plenty of times, staring at me.
he had that. He had the steer. I
We
looked
talked to him
inside
once.
once.
He was a nice guy,
Had
but
the specialty steering wheel, like which is the other thing I even left out was a yoke, not even a steering wheel. Like had two handles going up like a yoke, like you fly a plane with on Knight Rider, and he had one of those installed. I'm like, son of a bitch, like you committed, you went 1,000% on that. But all right, well, let's give it over to the Star Child. I got to hear how he'd handled his Saturday Night TV party, what he was going. So let's hear what you got, Gregory.
I'm not trying to be controversial. You know what I mean? I'm a person of peace and tranquility. But the truth is, Vince McMahon, he happened. He happened. It happened. And there's no getting away with it, and you're getting away from it, and you can't talk about professional wrestling without talking about Vince McMahon. And I'm talking about Saturday night's main event. I don't know if I end up talking a lot about professional wrestling on here, but you know what? It's a microcosm of American culture. It just is. It's everything you need. And as the person who had to live vicariously through the Junkyard Dog, I'm going to say that it more or less, well, I think I'm more like Coco Beware. I'm probably like Coco
ooh,
Beware.
okay,
Yeah, I think I'm Coco Beware.
okay.
But still, you see what I'm saying. I ain't Virgil, goddamn it. It's
No,
whatever.
hey,
I ain't
come on
Virgil.
now.
Whatever. I ain't
He did
Virgil.
have a redemption arc.
He did, or he tried,
He
or
tried.
someone thought he did.
Oh, yeah.
But if you weren't around at the time in the late 80s, early 90s, Saturday night's main event was a wrestling program that came on in the evening, which was kind of strange because you already had wrestling for just about the entire weekend anyway. But I don't know, I guess just SNL didn't feel like doing it one night, and so they gave it over to Vince McMahon just for the hell of it. And if you were a kid at that time, you loved it. You were staying up late. You were watching whatever weird ass version of your sport your father just completely fucking dismissed. Like, this ain't a sport. It's not sport. He had no interest in it. He didn't care. But it was all right. This was a time for you to get together with your boys late at night, not early in the morning because, the real Ghostbusters. But, at night when you were really serious, it was time to watch Saturday night's main event. And they tried to bring it out. Now, it wasn't as big as like WrestleMania or Royal Rumble or any of those. It wasn't that big an event. And they knew that. Vince McMahon, aside from all of his other, graces and flaws, is also, the man knows how to market. Like he's not going to give away all of his best moments for TV. You save that stuff for the pay-per-view so you can get really paid. But as far as making a spectacle on late Saturday night TV that dragged in all the young boys who were just before the Power Rangers, this was the shit. It was everything. This is when you got peak Jesse the Body Ventura. Glasses that matched the boas, that matched the bandanas, that matched the boots. It was beautiful. This was peak Macho Man Randy Savage. You know what I mean? All of those. Yeah, this was peak Macho Man Randy
1,000%.
Savage. Absolutely. This was a peak Hulk Hogan. Like I don't remember Hulk Hogan.
Golden Age.
Yeah,
Golden
absolutely. This was absolute peak. So by this point in what was happening in professional wrestling, I mean, obviously it was a hell of a lot more camp and it was more bombastic, but that's what you wanted. Like I know everything is a lot more, dark and metal now. Fuck that noise. All right. I want large men dressed in right up to drag. Not totally drag, but right up to drag. Like just
Yeah.
right up to that line of drag. I want them right there. And it was honestly classic matchups. It was after Rocky 3. So, yes, obviously, you're going to have Mr. T. He's going to make his cameos.
A
This is,
1000%. And that's when I became aware of Saturday Night Raw, was because he was on A Team, and then he
mhm.
would come on and be like, "Come on, watch Saturday Night Raw," and it was like, son of a bitch, Saturday Night's main event, and you were
Yeah.
like, "Holy shit, I
Yeah.
gotta watch this because Mr. T's gonna be on it." Son of a bitch,
Yeah.
I'm there.
You're there. Exactly. And it had classic matchups. You had Hulk Hogan versus Nikolai Volkov, America versus Russia, because that just doesn't get old, God damn it.
Nope.
And
Cold War was still going on when it started.
you had it was. And you
Yes.
had the enigmatic Rowdy Roddy Piper. Yes,
Ah,
I
Rest
think
in
it's because
peace.
he had chronic injury. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
man
Roddy
himself.
Piper. Yeah. And I think he had like chronic injuries and other
Yeah.
issues. So he wasn't as active as he should have been. But he was there. He did some commentary. I think he had like a special segment that they gave him for a little while. So he was absolutely killing it. And you know what? It was a pleasure. Absolute pleasure every time he came on. You had the great George the Animal Steele and his
Oh,
really weird ass obsession with Miss Elizabeth.
which all
I
right,
just remember
yeah.
the hair.
Yeah, George the
Looks like
Animal.
Josh.
Yeah, it was something else altogether. I didn't know what to. Yeah, I didn't know what to make out of that.
That was
George
a
the Animal Steele. You know what I mean? But one of the biggest matches
like cashmere
easily.
sweater on all the time.
Who?
Well, I'm saying with the hair, it was like he had a
Oh yeah.
cashmere sweater on all the time.
One of the biggest I'll never forget this. Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant versus I
Mhm.
think it was King Kong Bundy,
Mm.
and was it Hillbilly Jim?
Might have been
No, Big John
Nope. I
Studd.
mean,
It
yeah,
was
Big
Big
John.
Big
John
John
Okay,
Studd
Studd.
okay. Or
Yeah,
was it
there
or
you
Hacksaw
go.
Jim Duggan
Hacksaw
or Big
Jim
John
Duggan.
Studd?
Yep.
Okay, it's Jim Duggan. Okay, all right.
It's a 2x4.
Yes. This was
Yes,
he
Hacksaw
would
Jim
walk
Duggan. Okay, yeah, with the two by
smacking the
four.
shit out of people with
For real.
a 2x4.
That shit
And
ain't
Right.
then
great.
just, I mean, I don't even know why you don't even need to sell this shit right here. But Randy Savage versus the Honky Tonk Man. Oh my
Come on
god.
now. Did Brutus the Barber Beefcake do a turn?
Oh yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like he must have. When you were
Yeah.
talking about
Jake the
right up
Snake.
to, like, he was one of those ones when you were talking about like right up to the line of drag.
Mm-hmm.
Brutus the Barber.
That's fair.
And he, like that was definitely one that I would think of, right? Because he was always there
Yeah.
and kind of running his hand through his hair and like slightly effeminate, but not quite, right? Like just to
Right.
the limit of
I think
what
we're
was there.
forgetting what 80s were like, and a
Yeah,
lot of
it was
people are getting
always.
reminded
No,
about that
that's
with Gambit and
absolutely
X-Men
that's totally
97.
fine. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it
Half
was
shirts were
definitely
a thing.
there.
Yeah.
It was funny because it was like right there, but like, yeah, still you
All
didn't
right.
say it. You just kind of lived it, right?
Yeah.
It was just part,
Did we
part
forget
and
Prince in
parcel.
the Purple Rain era? I think we already talked about this. 80s were not the same beast. Like
No.
Greg Finch.
They
It
weren't.
was man air quotes. It was the masculinity air quotes. Big fucking air quotes. Um uh Another one of my personal favorites, Demolition versus the British Bulldogs. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there you
Yo.
go.
I mean, the arguments we got into over that match, like it was that serious. All right, that was hands down worth it. And how many people remember Sid Vicious slash Sid Justice? Remember that dude?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
remember.
before Brock Lesnar, he was a monster. That guy was genuinely terrifying. Like, it was one of the largest human beings I had ever seen in my life. And this guy went after Hulk Hogan. I think he came in as a good guy and then he turned evil. I'm not sure, but I
Turned
think that's
heel.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's just what you probably do in
Well,
all of
yeah.
us, right?
That at that time, when you're talking about Macho Man Randy Savage, he was a good guy, right? He
Yeah.
turned heel little
Was
as
he
I
ever a good
feel
guy?
like he was during Saturday
Wasn't
Night
he
Main
always
Event.
anti-hero?
He when he first came on the scene, he was Hulk Hogan's buddy.
Yeah.
And that was all the thing. And then there was, I think it was on Saturday Night's Main Event
Yeah.
when there was some kind of free for all, and Hogan grabbed Miss Elizabeth
Listen,
and got
yeah.
her out of the ring. And then he turned, that was the impetus for him to turn heel, because he's
Yeah.
like, you grabbed Miss Elizabeth and got her out of the ring. And I don't like that you touched her and you didn't have my back because you were supposed to be my wingman.
No,
So
see, I
that was the
remember
whole,
that. I know I'm the youngest. I just remember I felt like he was already he was never a hero. He was always anti-hero, but not a heel.
Yeah, it was.
right.
It
He wasn't,
depends
yeah,
because
that's a fair assessment. That's a fair
well,
assessment. He just hadn't
people
turned. Go
well,
ahead,
people
Greg. Sorry.
always liked him because he was an asshole. Like him being an asshole was always part of his shtick. And there was a time when he was like the asshole everybody liked, and there were times that he was the asshole
Yeah.
that nobody liked.
Yeah.
And there was the times where just people didn't understand what the fuck he was talking about.
That was like all of it.
In the big time.
That was like all of it.
Yeah.
The
Coffee in the big
cream
time.
rises to the top.
Time is now.
One of the biggest matches, hands down, was the Hart Foundation against the Rockers.
Ooh.
Now that was early Shawn Michaels and Martin Jannetty, and that was hot. And I still, to this day, think Bret Hart is the greatest wrestler of all time. Just saying.
Oh wow! All right,
Okay.
well, that's a whole.
We're just
Okay.
gonna have to fight about it.
This is
That's
a whole
a
new.
whole
This is a whole new
episode to
episode
itself.
now.
Yeah, it's a whole episode unto itself. Well,
I'm just saying.
I'm gonna let you have that for now.
Technical
Greg.
skill. Technical skill.
Hey,
I'm
let
gonna
him
let
have
you
shit.
have that to yourself for right now, because
Yeah,
you
Just
know
skipping
we
over the
don't wanna-
Ultimate Warrior like he did.
son of a bitch, that's
Like
exactly
he
what I
have
was thinking.
three people playing him.
RaShaun,
That man died 3 times for that role.
I had to hurt your
absolutely
feelings,
thinking of
man.
Ultimate Warrior, son of a bitch. Like,
had
you
to
know,
hurt your
we're right
feelings.
on that.
Yeah, had to
We're
hurt
right
your
on
feelings.
that. RaShaun, since you had no, since you
Well,
were saying you
I
had no
think
homework.
Greg got a little bit left.
Oh, go ahead, Greg.
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna throw in obviously there were a ton of great matches, but there were also Royal Rumbles. And all of those were all massive events. And honestly, I liked a couple of them better than the actual like Summer Slams. Was it Summer Slams. I like them better than the Summer Slams. Yeah, I mean, they would just go on, and they were fucking fantastic. And yeah, I think that's it. You know what I mean? I think most people came away from that as like that was a little special moment in professional wrestling. That was the purest 100%. that professional wrestling was at the time. And random fun fact, it actually ended up being, because of the British Bulldogs, it actually ended up being a little bit popular in England.
Okay.
Yeah, did not know that.
I never understood why they lost so much, and they would always fucking lose.
The British
Always,
Bulldogs.
yeah. I would see those guys coming out. I'm like, how are these guys losing? Like they're so freaking like jacked in the right areas, and then like 5 minutes later, all right, well, next match, they're done.
Yeah, I guess we're done. Yeah.
they had the accents, and throwing a few Union Jacks, so you can get some fans from over the across the pond, and you're good to go. I mean, that was it.
You couldn't get any more Britisher.
Yeah.
Right?
So Josh asked me, and I'm just gonna go ahead and hop in. Greg Starchild, spitting straight fire. I'm getting chills even thinking about it because, frankly, he's right. There was. Oh wait, he's got to pop out. So let him get his exit.
I gotta vanish.
Get your exit, Greg.
Just wanted to say laters. This was not just for me, but this was for MASH and Bob Newhart and Carol Burnett and the classic must-see TV lineup of 1973. And I'm out.
That's
All
the
right,
governor.
Greg.
That's the
Governor. That's it. Going out on the air horns as he has to go. All right, RaShaun, take your moment.
I just want to point out that what Greg was talking about, masterful TV. It's one of those things that it's very hard to, I think, ever replicate for a lot of different reasons. Most likely, I would have to argue we should have a different episode just on that era of WWF sorry, Worldwide Animal Federation or whatever, who took it.
World Wildlife Federation is
Yeah,
sewage.
World Wildlife Federation. Sorry, up until you guys, got better lawyers, it was, WWF was wrestling. And during that period of time, to Greg's eloquent points, and so much to cover that there's a lot to leave out. Like we even talked about the fact that that's when the Undertaker actually started. That's when
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of different plot lines started. Funny enough, I was watching ESPN earlier today, Pat McAfee show, and he had Triple H on, and Triple H is talking about all these different eras that they have risen WWE into like stratosphere that they never thought they could be in, to the point where they're on ESPN talking about their next event as if it was like the Super Bowl, and getting the coverage for it. It's one of those things where, despite all the pomp and circumstance of what they have now, what was happening in the 80s and the early 90s with the events in the series that Greg was talking about was so lightning in a bottle type of situation, where there was a confluence of so many great things happening, but also so many bad things happening that focused us in. I frankly did not have any TV shows to think about, because the more I think about it, I've already either talked about them. I didn't want to talk about Saturday Night Live for a lot of different reasons, because frankly, I didn't know I had enough time, and I don't know what to focus on because there's so much I've been watching in my entire life. If anything, I could point out that if I were to talk about something from Saturday night, it would probably be Saturday Night Live, because it was the first time, it was the one show my parents, or it's the first thing I can remember my parents let me stay up late to watch. I just had to watch it with them. Obviously, most of the humor went over my head, but it was definitely things that I found humorous. But the more I think about it, we've already kind of talked about, the one thing I guess I could have talked about was exactly what Greg talked about, which was, again, that era of wrestling. And not only led to so many iconic events, it kind of created fans like me. Where I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna be a pro wrestling fan for my entire life. I've gone to municipal places to watch wrestling, and that's like the bottomest tier. I'll be honestly, like I've gone to events where you can legit get away with running into the ring, and everyone's gonna be like, yeah, whatever, it made it better. Like, so I love pro wrestling, and a lot of it has to do with exactly what Greg was talking about. So I'm gonna be a lifer. Also, it created, unfortunately, people like me where it's hard to get back into wrestling at any given point, because that was so majestic the time that Greg was talking about. One, you had an industry that frankly did not get a whole lot of attention. And then the second part is you had an industry that wanted the attention. So with those two things happening and given a platform, and then you add in the special spice that Birdman was talking about in the earlier part of the segment, which is the fact that the selection power was so low that, because they were no holds bar and no one was paying attention, and everyone had to focus on one or two or three things at a given time, they were able to run away with it and create such an incredible, I would have to say, 10-year run from the mid 80s to the early 90s, or so not 10 years, but uh, that they created so many different events that you didn't have to pay for. You didn't have to, the paywall was down because it was all on network. If anything, a lot of what Greg was talking about with the sort of pay-per-views, the Royal Rumbles, the WrestleManias, even SummerSlam, which wasn't a thing in the 80s, at least I don't remember. I think it kind of came in
I
the
think
80s.
lady again. I think it's in there with the Cool
Right.
Ranch
Cool Ranch. All
Dorito
right,
flavor. I feel
86.
like it's like 86 up, right?
Yeah.
Right. You got 85 down. You got 86 up, right?
But because they were working so hard to get people's attention, what people don't understand is these pay-per-view events, they were big, but actually what happened was the events leading into it and leading out of it were more important. They were more monumental. They were more pivotal to almost every single storyline. So yeah, a lot of people think about, if they look up WWF during the 80s, they're gonna find Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant, which by the way is an incredible feat. I don't care if
Yeah.
you think it's fake or real. he is slamming a person that's one of the biggest people in the entire world. And he did it. Like, sure, you can say Andre jumped, sure, but go ahead and
Yep.
try to hold 400 pounds even for a second and then
Second.
try to
Oh,
manipulate it,
1,000%. I mean, that
right?
was the biggest thing, and all of that lead up to that as well. You know, what to go to Greg's point, and I didn't want to step on him too much during his segment,
Please.
was this was when McMahon really consolidated all of these smaller wrestling leagues into
Yeah.
something national and then put it on national television
He
on
was the
Saturday night.
Negan. He was the Negan
Uh,
of
thousand
wrestling
percent.
event circuits. Uh,
Yes, 1,000%. He brought all these in, and even was bringing in people, even bringing in some of the what
well,
was left of the Iron Claw and all these other wrestling leagues
right,
that he was
exactly.
bringing under that on Saturday night.
Well, part of the reason why I said Negan though is because he did it violently. Like, yeah, there was a lot of strong arming of
There
these
was
little
that. Yeah,
circuits.
there was a Lucille involved for
Exactly,
sure.
exactly. And that Lucille were the networks.
Yes.
He was able to get those contracts. He was wherever little bit of time he was getting, he was able to do that along with some of the venues that he was able to set up partnerships to basically use it as a Lucille to come into some of these smaller circuits, beat them over the head, go ahead and find their Glen, take it out, and then next you know they're part of the WWF.
Well,
Um,
some bitch. I love it. We've tied together WWF and
right?
TWD.
Just give me time. Just give me time, man. And then on top of that, I love that he brought up Roddy Piper because he does not get talked about enough. He had so much to do with the growth of it. He had so much to do with giving legitimacy to the sport. And also he was a much more in-depth individual that did
Yes.
not get the credit for what he was and what he stood for and what he thought. Many of the wrestlers actually were very much like him, but also if you love Eric Bischoff, he was the blueprint. So there's a lot that goes into that. I will end my little like rant that had nothing to do with this whole subject. I'm just commentating, I guess, in the sense that I guess my biggest problem was Saturday night for me, other than like I said, the little bit of what Greg was talking about with wrestling that I watched on my own. My parents like, whatever, you do what you want. I don't give a shit. You don't have school. Or Saturday Night Live is because for me, I guess I was at the age where Saturday night was more like no one's gonna bother me. I get to go rent some movies. I can watch movies. I can play some video games. I'm probably sleeping over a friend's house, so I apologize, but this is where the baby of the crew kind of puts it out.
Oh, well, we won't hold that against you in that regard. For those of you listening who are still with us to this point in the show, Google the interview. It was before Bill Maher's current
Oh
show.
yeah,
Go Bill Maher
I
and
thought you were gonna go
Roddy
to that.
Piper. Like that's one worth watching. That was I forget his old. That was his network show. I forget what that was, but
Yeah.
that's a that's a moment in history. And Roddy Piper won. Let me just say that. So anyway, for those of you stuck this far with us, please follow us on the socials. We are the Steam Gentlemen on Steam Gentlemen Podcast on Facebook. We are Do You Even Steam Bro on IG. We are hanging out there. We're doing our thing. Yeah, it's been a little bit. We're hanging in there. It's been a little hard to sort of find all of our times and get three schedules to link up between three grown ass men here in this later part of the 2020s as we stand on the precipice of content that could get us, who knows, put into a brief trial, followed by a quick execution. So, yes, indeed, something that can be used against us in a, not so distant dystopian future. But make sure to follow us. Make sure to rate and review us on iTunes. We'll keep bringing you the content when we can. Because, yeah, it's a grind out there, people. We all got our side hustles. We all got our stuff going. But Three of Clubs, tell me how you doing. Tell me what you got going on.
Like normal, try and make it to the next paycheck. Like I would say 80% of the rest of the world. If you are employed, good on you. If not, keep trying. Uh, But I would like to leave our listeners with this. If you want to really, and I would argue, there's a lot of different interviews that you can watch. One being what Mr. Birdman just pointed out, Mr. Piper educating a very ignorant individual on his own show. And he was with other people doing that. Like Sting was there. He tried to, I think Medusa, not Medusa. She was too old. I forgot who it was. But several pro wrestlers tried to educate. And finally, it was Roddy Piper who literally had to pull down his pants to prove his point. It wasn't a measuring contest because then he wouldn't even have to do that for Mr. Marr. However, I would say if you really want to understand the bombastic nature of what Mr. Starchild was talking about, I say what you should do is you should look up Macho Man Randy Savage interviews. Just let it go. Take it for wherever it takes you. Go with it. Don't worry about it. Like you're not going to find the right interview. Just keep picking all their, watch all of them because that man had both a genius and an insanity that in a lot of ways encapsulated the wrestling period that we were talking about and created fans like me, which is a problem because it's hard to accept any other wrestling like the period that Star Child was talking about. So
that is
good
fair.
reference for food for the father.
1,000% fair. And yeah, I mean, going into that and talking about Roddy Piper and what have you, and exposing himself, that just leads me to people questioning John Cena going out in the Oscars this year, which people were like, how could he do that? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe for years he wore something that was pretty damn close.
Yeah.
Probably had something that was under that. And if you're yoked as shit like that guy, a fellow masshole, I might add.
True.
I'm going out on the Oscars, and I'm looking like that. I got absolutely no problem. So,
to be fair, Mr. Piper, he only showed his thigh. It was around his buttock.
Yeah, all right.
Buttock.
Yeah, all right. Buttock. You know, I found that. All right. So this is Josh the Birdman. He's here telling you, I just want you to keep tuning in as best we can. Keep following us as best you can and keep your heat up and keep your head of steam on, baby.